Good morning, everybody. Nice to see a nice large group here on a Sunday morning. So as Sakula said, I'm Debbie. I live at Abhayagiri, and it's a delight to be here. I always very much appreciate coming to PFOD. It's a very special, supportive, grounded, lovely group with lots of opportunity for accessing meditation, accessing Dhamma in a lot of different formats. So it's a very much a gift, which obviously a lot of you are tapping into and taking advantage of. It's not a common situation in the world. I'm very blessed because I have the opportunity to live at a monastery, so I'm surrounded by reminders every day, and I still forget. We're really good at that. We had a very lovely day yesterday with a day long, and at the end of the day long we kind of shared, and people shared some of the things that they've been working with or what insights they've had in their practice. And that was very fruitful for me, very beneficial for me to hear that and to hear what people had to share. Because that's what this is really about. It's about sharing what our experiences are in our aspiration to realize, really it's about realizing liberation from suffering and the things that drag us down. That's what this practice, that's what the Buddha taught. And you can frame it in the words of the Buddha, or if that's intimidating, then you can just frame it in the sense that it's a very human characteristic that we want to be happy, even though we repeatedly hold on to our suffering. We keep repeating the things that bring us down or give us grief. Those habitual tendencies that we have a hard time breaking out of. And we all do it. Some have more of a propensity, it seems, than others, but we all do it. We all slip into our habits because you don't have to pay attention. You just do it. It's a natural flow because we're conditioned that way. So this practice is a practice of aspiration. The truthfulness of seeing our habits, the truthfulness of questioning, is this what we really want? And then accepting the responsibility that it's in our power. We each have the power to change that. And we have to be willing to put the efforts into it. And it takes time, so we always need to reflect on the truth of patience, that we need patience. Not patience in the sense of, I'll just hang in here on this until it's over and then it'll pass. It's more the patience of, yes, I can be with this. I can learn from this. And then to continually be reminding ourselves what we're striving for. And we don't set the goal that's way up there, like, people talk about Nibbana. I haven't tasted Nibbana, so I can't tell you what that is. But I can tell you what the sense of letting go, when I've realized an experience that I've actually put down and let go. I can tell you what that experience is like, and you can experience that. And by experiencing those little things, those little opportunities of letting go, release, that's where inspiration comes to keep striving, to keep putting in the effort that it takes. People don't become, some people are naturally genius at it, but not very many, but people don't become professional pianists just because they play the piano once in a while. They practice hard. Athletes practice hard to develop the skills. So it's really up to us to put the efforts into our practice so that we can experience the benefits of that. One of the things that came up yesterday was a quote that Ajahn Pasanno is always saying. He's always reminding us that the happy mind is easily concentrated. And so in meditation, we're often thinking in terms of how can I get my mind more concentrated? But then how can I also take what I learn on the cushion or on the chair, on the bench in my formal meditation? How can I take those same skills and take them into my daily life? And that's what the person who shared yesterday just talked about. Oh yeah, the happy mind is easily concentrated. So I can take this situation that's pretty chaotic and do something that's fun that makes us all feel happy and see what happens. And that willingness to explore that and take that chance. And yeah, it's a really, meditation in our practice isn't dreary, and it's not all about suffering, but it's about the truth of the end of suffering that we can experience by putting ourselves into the practice, being truthful about the results. Sometimes we have to really be honest about how something has affected us. We have to take the time to review. So we decide we're going to, maybe our habitual tendency is to get irritated. We have to drive through traffic to work or to school, and we get very irritated at the way other people drive. And so that makes tension. And I don't know about you, but for me that tension is not a very pleasant, happy experience. And so we could set the aspiration, what can I do so that I don't get so caught up in that anxiousness and that just drivenness to get there and get there fast and get in front of that person. And maybe it's going to be that you see someone's really pushing, hurrying, they're riding someone else to try to get ahead and get over, and you just kind of slow down a little bit and let that person in. And you breathe out and you realize, well, that released a little bit of tension. And it's not from a place of self-righteousness. It's from a place of, that's a simple thing to do, that's a small thing to aspire to, and yet it takes some effort. It takes a little shift in the way we're viewing it. So you've all heard about the fires in California, and most of you probably know that the monastery we had to evacuate. And I talked a lot about that yesterday. And it was interesting because someone who was here yesterday said, well, your experience was very different than what I experienced, being up here and watching the news, watching the videos of the fire. And it was, because we were there, we were in it. And one of the things that really shined out the most, was the most glaring in its beauty, was the way that in this disaster, really, I mean, Redwood Valley looks very different right now than it looked 3 weeks ago. What came out of it was, and I can feel my heart, it's just there is emotion there. I feel the beauty of it. It brought out so much goodness in people. It gave people an opportunity to give, to share, to support. And it gave other people an opportunity to learn how to receive, which oftentimes we get ourselves quite comfortable in our situation. We've got ourselves taken care of. We don't know how to receive. And the truth is, in our receiving, we're allowing, not only does that give us joy when we realize the generosity of others, but we're allowing also someone to experience the fruits of generosity and having their offering received. It's win-win. One example that when I was talking to Sakula, I was just sharing a few things that were very spontaneous acts of generosity. And one was, we had to leave in the morning. It took us about an hour, actually. We didn't have the fire at our heels, so we were very fortunate. But we could see the glow, and we had people calling us and telling us to get out. And So we did. We gathered in the monastery. There were 26 of us. We managed to have enough vehicles. We had a plan. We made sure we'd heard our neighbor couldn't get her car out of the garage, so we went and checked to make sure she got out. Beth and I gathered things from the office that we felt were important to gather, like money, some checks. So if we needed to be out for a long time, we had a means of making sure the monks were all looked after and taken care of, and just things like that. And then we made our plan. We had to drive out the back way, which is not many people go out that way. It requires usually four-wheel drive, and it's 7 creek crossings and some steep embankments. But we took all our vehicles, and we had to abandon 3 vehicles in the process. People going out stopped, took people into their van. Some people got in the back of a truck that was going by, and we helped each other. We all got out. But we didn't have time to grab a lot of personal things. So we ended up one night in Fort Bragg at a friend's place, and then we went to the city of 10,000 Buddhas, which is near Ukiah. And they took care of us like family. They really took us under their wing and just adapted, made space available for us so we could keep a little bit of our own routine. And it made them very happy. They got a lot of joy out of that. Somebody came, their monastics don't eat breakfast, but ours do. And somebody came and made panini to offer for the community in the morning at 7 o'clock. It was very, very beautiful. But Beth and I had to run a lot of errands in town, and we went first to one of the briefings. Initially, they had them outside the county building, and they would have the fire people there and the police there and the sheriff, and they would give us an update of what was happening, where things were for that day, what kind of resources were available for people. The communication was excellent. The organization was amazing. And our sheriff is totally awesome. And that was wonderful to see. And I had an opportunity to tell him that, which was wonderful too, because he's going through a lot. It was a lot of work for him. And somebody, after the meeting, asked us, there were some supporters of the monastery there, and somebody asked Beth and I, well, is there anything you two need? And we thought about it, and it looked like we weren't going to be getting back on the property anytime soon. We weren't even sure how the property would fare. And so we both said, well, we could use a change of clothes. And so he just pulled out his wallet and gave us money and said, go get some clothes. So we each were able to get a change of clothes. And that was very touching because it was so spontaneous. And we were able to be honest about what was useful to us without being excessive. And he was able to just offer freely from his heart and do something in support of the community. That's what we noticed the most. People from afar, they just were burning to do. That's not a good analogy. It's not a good word. But they were on fire too, with wanting to do something to help the community, because, you know, I don't know what it was like out there, but I can imagine that it was a lot of videos and footage of fires and flames and burning structures, and that's pretty alarming when you don't really know what's happening to the people, the place you care about. So people wanted to do something. So just little ways of people being able to do something. And we had to encourage our local people to, like visitors in the Bay Area, to not come up, because we were trying to keep the roads as open and clear for the fire department, the police department, everybody that was the first responders that needed the ready access to places. So we were trying to keep people off the roads, and we also didn't want to burden the city of 10,000 Buddhas at all in any way, make more work for them. So that, what people would have been doing, the Thai people would have been bringing us food. And some people came anyway and brought us, somebody brought a bag full of crystal deodorants and, just anything. And she was kind of like, do you need a blanket? I have a blanket in my car. Here, take this blanket. Here, take this. Just wanting to do something. So we put on our website, we started letting people know to go to the website for updates. And we put on our website that if people wanted to contribute cards from the Ukiah Co-op or from Safeway, that was a good thing that they could contribute. And the response was astounding from all over the world. I went into Ukiah to pick up some of the gift cards, and he said, "Are you Debbie?" And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Oh, people from all over the world have been making offerings, and they've been so concerned, and they said, just leave it for Debbie. I'll be in to pick it up. I'm so glad to meet you." So it was very touching, very very warming. And for people, it gave them an opportunity to do something. And I think a lot of people were very grateful for that opportunity. Another experience that we had was when we went into Walmart, because that's a cheap place to get a change of clothes. And we were in there, and somebody got my attention, and it was a Thai woman, and she was up from about an hour and a half north of us, Kovalo. And I don't have much space left in my memory banks anymore, so I see so many people. She's probably seen me at the monastery, but she recognized me. She knew I was from the monastery, and she was concerned, "How are you all doing?" And I said, "We're fine." And then she just, without a bat of the eyelid, she just went into her wallet, handed me $100, and said, "I want you to get food for the monks." So, it's just that kindness, that generosity. And generosity is something that's very uplifting. Gratitude is something that's very uplifting. So these are things that we can bring into our life somehow. That's an act of generosity, to slow down and let that anxious car get in front of you. Even if they're being really rude and riding you for a while, it's an act of kindness. And that can bring joy to our hearts. There's so many ways we can incorporate that into our daily life without necessarily harming ourselves or setting ourselves back from the things that we need to do. But what it does is also broadens our view. And that broadening of the view is another thing that brings us a lot of happiness, because so much in our frantic day-to-day life of time and schedules and getting the children off to school, getting the whatever we have to do, we're on schedules, we're on tight schedules often, and we can get really tight and really narrow about it. So sometimes just taking the opportunity to breathe, to exhale, to pause, to broaden the view, and then move from that place. It doesn't take much time, but it can make a big difference, and it can bring a moment of happiness. And in that happiness, that contributes to our ability to focus. And so we're getting direct fruits of our practice. From what we're learning on the cushion, we take that right into our daily life, in the way that we respond to others, in the way that we nurture ourselves as we need to. And that's all so important. And another thing that I find people don't do enough, and I noticed it in myself a long time ago and had really made an effort to do this, but we sometimes think we're being selfish and self-centered if we focus in on the way we've benefited or the good things that we've done. But actually, and I suppose we could make that a very self-centered practice. But we also have to, it's so easy for us to remember and reflect on the things that we've done wrong, or how we've tripped up, or we weren't going to say something to somebody and we lost it and we lost our temper with them and we said that. That seems to be pretty common in day-to-day experience, where we focus in on the ways we've, quote, failed. We haven't met our ideas of who we should be, what we should be. And what we neglect to do is, it's okay to look at that and reflect on that and say, okay, how could I have done something differently for the next time, without indulging in the misery of, I'm such a failure, I can't do anything right. But it's also essential to look back and review, what did I do that was good? What were the positive things? Where did I do something that was beneficial? oftentimes we let that just glance right over us and we don't spend another moment reflecting on that. And that's essential in our practice, because that's also how we get to see our growth and the fruits of our practice, is by acknowledging shifts where something is beneficial, where something comes through that makes us happy, and maybe it also makes someone else happy. So just encouragement. I really want to encourage people to take this practice and figure ways to take what you're learning. Because I've thought a lot about gratitude, because that was something that came up for me really early in my practice. And gratitude is something that brings very joyful states of mind, very joyful heart. But I never thought like that. I've heard that phrase so much, that the happy mind is a concentrated mind. I never really thought about that in terms of in that phrase, in terms of my daily actions, in my daily activities. Even though I may have done that because I felt better, but I hadn't consciously actually taken that to that level. And so it was really lovely to have that. Oh, that's a really good tool. That's a really good thing to remember. That's something I can hold in my. Maybe this week I'll take that. Maybe just today I'll take that phrase as my mantra today, and then maybe ideas will come through the day. I'll get opportunities to put that into practice in my interactions with my family, in my interactions, for me, with my community, in my interactions with the people that I associate with in work, or the people that I come in contact with through the buffer of a vehicle. However it works, however you can apply it. Just the part of this practice that allows for us to bring creativity into it and broaden the spectrum of how we use things, how we look at it. And of course, the meditation is always going to be important and valuable, because that's where we slow down enough to remind ourselves to bring up those things, to get some insights and understanding out of the flow of the rush of the day. But then the ability to transition, as Sakula was saying, transition from the posture of meditation and into the posture of meditation in action, in movement. And it's a crucial part of our practice. So really just, I guess that's the encouragement that I wanted to bring today and to everybody, and through just a couple of the experiences. There was a silver lining in the whole experience of evacuating and the fires, and we'll be seeing some of those things still for some time to come. So just encourage everybody, and it's good to see everybody, and thank everybody for having me here.